This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
We made this.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Xcast. The truth is in here. My name is Kurt North and thank you for joining me again as we go through I Want to Believe, the second X-File movie, minute by minute. Whose idea was this? God knows. Maybe Tony. But joining me this episode for the final time is Mr. Luke Winch. Luke, hello. We are at the end of our band of episodes together. I'll be handing over to Tony next episode. Let's talk. Let's talk about generally your thoughts on this actual movie as a whole. I mean, we very briefly touched upon it at the very beginning of our journey, but let's talk about this movie as a whole. What are your general thoughts on it?
Now, I really enjoy it for what it is. Like you said, it is a much kind of darker, slightly morbid, actually. It is quite morbid, but it's a slightly darker, more morbid film, much more in the vein of Millennium, and I think that's not really an accident either, because Chris Carter, when he was doing Millennium, was very, very interested in the nature of evil and this kind of what motivates serial killers, and having Frank in the mind of that. And I think that really thematically fits in with this movie, because you've got Father Joe, who is connected to the perpetrator in a certain way, and has these visions and bleeds out the eyeballs. And I think you touched on it. I can't remember which episode it was, but like the kind of whole motivation and the reasoning behind the body parts tends to be a little bit muddled, and is a bit obscure, and I don't think I ever really sit confidently within that particular storyline. But I appreciate the character. I really appreciate the character work, and I really like Billy Connolly. I think he gives at times a very understated performance. I mean, we're so used to him being this. He's so energetic and so funny and vibrant, and he's almost, he gives this very understated performance, and he holds his body in a really bizarre way, which I really appreciate. He's obviously put a lot of thought into this character, and must be hard for him to kind of go, I'm playing a convicted paedophile here, so how do I do this? Where do I put my mind and stuff? So I really appreciate that. I respect the fact that Chris Carter was like, no, we're not doing a big alien movie. We're going to do quite an introspective movie, as well as a dark, kind of morbid, creepy one. And it's filmed beautifully. I mean, some of the snow landscapes are absolutely gorgeous to look at as well. So I much, much more appreciate it as an older man than I did in 2008, for sure.
There's a lot of moving parts within this, and a lot of reflection pieces in this film. And, some of it is done brilliantly. Father Joe, I think, works really effectively. I think the Mulder and Scully stuff about where their relationship is right now, that Scully has to get him out of his shell, works really good. Not obviously as thinged about the way that they get brought back in, but what can you do? The whole thing with Scully and the disease and stuff, trying to deal with that is great, and kind of that illusion there, and this idea of love and not giving up and things is really permeates through it. I just think that the aspect of love and the reasons why the perpetrators are actually doing what they're doing doesn't really pull through. It doesn't come through for some reason, and I don't know if it's just that it's not reachable is it trying to be too much of a mystery when would it be a bit more, if it was a bit more in the open and you can play to the strengths of like this guy really loves his partner and he's trying to keep him alive and, it's exactly what's happening with the kid. So it's just not enough to grasp onto in that element, and it's the weakest part of the film, unfortunately, which is the bad side of it. But I think overall, like you say, with Millennium stuff, it's great, So I think that's really good.
It was also for any Battlestar Galactica fans, it was great to see Callum Keith Rennie as well in this, who of course played Leoben in Battlestar Galactica. So that was great to see him in there as well.
Yes, and I will talk about that in future minutes. Callum Keith Rennie, because I think I get directly asked the question, do you know this actor and what he's been in? It's like, yes. And like, to be fair, I actually completely forgot he was in Battlestar Galactica. I actually completely forgot that.
Oh, did you?
And obviously he's going to be in Star Trek Discovery in season 5 of Star Trek Discovery as well. So so he's coming into that now as well. And he's been in Californication and all kinds. But he's one of those actors that has been in everything. But I completely forgot about Galactica. That's naughty of me, because I like Battlestar Galactica.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about this minute then. If people are wanting to get hold of these minutes, hopefully you'll be listening to this on the Patreon. If you're not listening to it on the Patreon, then get on the Patreon, because you'll be able to hear future minutes. Might be able to hear me talk about Calla Keith Rennie minutes later. So come and find us on the Patreon, patreon.com/the Xcast. And if you're enjoying these minutes, if you're enjoying the show, if you're enjoying all of the stuff that's come before, whether or not you're a first-time listener or you've listened to all 1,027 episodes, or let's say 1,121 episodes, let's go do that, then please, by all means, jump on your podcatcher and give us a rating. It really does help by giving us a 5-star review. It really does help for us to be seen. And we love doing this content, and it's great to be recognised for that. So please, by all means, if you have got the inclination to, you don't have to put anything serious on it. You just have to put 5 stars. You don't have to say, Kurt is amazing. He's a god. You don't have to say that if you don't want to. But if you do, then by all means do so. Let's talk about this though. Minute 20. We are at minute 20 now. 19 minutes to 19:59. We are continuing the conversation on from the previous minute, in which Scully's talking about potentially having one dead agent and finding out that Joe is a fraud. Mulder is back, baby. That's all I can say about this minute, because he has been on the teetering edge since we've seen him in his fake plastic beard, as you alluded to in previous episodes. Mulder has this glint in his eye, shall we say, during this minute, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's like he's like, you could be right, but what if you're wrong? And it's like, yep, he's back. Mulder's back. It's great because Mulder has his doubts as well about Father Joe, but he is willing to go the distance to see if he's wrong or right about him, and that's the Mulder that we love and know. He's willing to go the distance to actually find evidence. And I love that when he says that, Scully's look as an answer is almost like, here we go again, but no thanks. She's done with the 9 years of whatever they've done. She is moving on. She's a doctor now. She's got a patient to think about. But also, I think, like, near the end of the minute, when she's kind of approaching the car and when Mulder says, these people need my help, there's a lovely smile that she has. And I think she's kind of realizing that my Mulder's back. He's got this motivation to kind of go forward again. And that line, these people need my help, 10 minutes ago in his office, he was like, I'm not leaving this room. I don't trust the FBI. I hope you told him to go and kiss my ass or whatever. He said he was absolutely adamant that he was not going back out there. And now his mindset is, these people need my help. I want to know what's going on, because his curiosity is knows no bounds. So it's a lovely moment for us as fans to kind of see the Mulder that he once was again. He's kind of awoken from his isolated slumber and has that kind of, as you said, his glint in his eye again.
He does. We talked about the past. We talked about Beyond the Sea, and we've talked about Oubliette in previous episodes. And I'm going to bring up My Struggle, because there's a very kind of thematic link with My Struggle here, in the fact that it is kind of like, you're on fire, all that thing. It's like, it's a lot more underplayed in this, I must admit. But the fact that you do have that, like, kind of I'm going to use an Alan Partridge example here, and then I've completely sidetracked myself. But in the Alpha Papa Alan Partridge film, which is going to alienate most of our listeners now, there's a moment where they're under siege and Alan Partridge gets like recognised for what he is, and he feels that he's in control of the situation, and he's like, yeah, come on, like a peacock, he's peacocking. And Mulder's a little bit like that in this case. He's kind of like, he's feeling that, he's getting that mode, and My Struggle would do it to a lot more degree than what this does it. This underplays it. This is very succinct. Whereas I think the My Struggle does a little bit of talking about not finding Scully's voice. That particular scene in My Struggle, which we will get to, is it is a slightly different take on the way that it's done here. Yeah,
there's a good thematic link to a conversation that Mulder and Scully had in Fight the Future in the corridor, because of course Mulder is, his feathers, his plumage is spread again, but of course he can't do it on his own. He has to have his partner in crime. He has to have Scully. And there's a moment, he was like, I don't want to do this alone, which really calls back to the conversation in the corridor where he goes, you've kept me honest. You've made me a whole person. And I love that kind of link there between this. Scully is his metronome. Scully is his moral compass. It's his grounding. He needs that to kind of go forward. So it's a lovely. There's loads of callbacks, isn't there? Really,
yeah.
Or call forwards in the case of My Struggle that really focuses on their relationship and why they need each other.
Yeah, like I want you here. It's stuff like that. It's like this isn't my life anymore, Mulder. And then of course the line, I'm done chasing monsters in the dark. Which comes to by the end of the film, we actually do get that kind of the darkness, but let it try kind of thing, and which is a wonderful moment. You can see that interplay, and obviously because since the beginning of this film, that we've had like Scully pull Mulder out of the room because he's just not engaged at all. You then get in the helicopter, him basically going, well, I'll only go on one condition, that you come with me. So she has to go with him because obviously that will happen. You then get these scenes here. So there's like, it's not just like come out of the blue. It's not just like, it's not been focused on previously in the film. And we're only 15, 20 minutes in. So the fact that, within that 20-minute gap of reaffirming our characters here, that we are getting the full reaffirmation here with the fact that, I'm done chasing monsters in the dark. Tells you exactly where Scully is. Scully wants to help Mulder, but Mulder doesn't want to help himself. He needs that external. It's almost like feeding an introvert, isn't it? Like sort of feeding them coins to go, right, I need to be able to get out there. I need to be able to do it. But he needs that external circumstance to actually make that happen. But then it's teetering on a knife edge with Scully, because Scully has got her own life together. She is pulled together. She is centered. This will knock her off kilter. So it's like, it's an interesting emotional relationship dynamic. And it is, I don't know if it really counts as Kurt is talking about his shipping forecast or not, but it feels a little bit that way at the moment.
Yeah.
And that, it does feel that, and what I particularly like about this is a good way for me personally, that I like to see Mulder and Scully on this, because it's nuanced. It's not just we love each other and we're going to get together and have children and be happy ever after. This is, we love each other. And it does come back in later in the movie, actually, where it says we love each other, but we're not the best fit for each other because these things happen. Like Scully's looks fairly centered in her job. Mulder isn't. Mulder looks fairly centered in what he's doing, knocks Scully off balance. So I like that dichotomy, juxtapositions of them. I just like the way that that's portrayed. And it's very real, and that is what I particularly like about the I Want to Believe dynamic of their relationship, and I think that works to a great effect.
Scully's frightened that Mulder being sucked back into this world is going to be a negative thing for him. And there's a scene later, and not to step on the toes of people who are going to talk about it, but the scene later where he goes, I need this. This is who I am. This is what I've done all my life. This is what I need to be me. And I think Scully sometimes, maybe she's lost sight of that, or maybe she's just not kind of trying to acknowledge that at that point. But it's that plays into this oppositional dichotomy that you were talking about, where yes, they love each other, but they're in opposite. They're ships moving in opposite directions in the ocean, and Scully, her focus is very much as being a doctor again, and she's got a lot of opposition going on there, so she doesn't need to be sucked back into this world again, and that plays really well throughout the whole movie.
And then, as I say, the problem is that she wants to see Mulder like this, really. As much as she doesn't want to see him get this involved, she just wants him out of the house, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like, get out of my house. It's, just out of the unremarkable house and actually into society is what she wants from him. But the cost is, at that cost, is that cost. It's the fact that it's going to have an effect on her. So, I think it's a really nuanced approach in the whole movie, actually. So that's really fascinating. Anything else in this particular one? She takes the file as a kind of like a handing over that she's in now. She's going to help. And that's all I've got for this minute. So anything else that you want to bring up?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. I've got everything said that was in my notes. So, yeah. Well,
that's it for this section, Luke. Thank you very much for joining me for these few minutes.
It's been a pleasure. It was great to watch the film again because I hadn't seen it in a while. So it was a good excuse to watch the film. Always good to podcast with you, and I quite enjoy these minute by minute things because you can really get down to the little nitty gritty things and talk about the overriding broader themes as well. So it's been fun. At least in my Fight the Future we had to talk about what about my man. So it's been a bit deeper and a bit darker these discussions. So I've rather enjoyed that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only I would say the only problem that I had with Firefest is that, I'd heard on the grapevine that Fight the Future wasn't the greatest experience because they had problems. I think I know what those problems were technically, so I don't know if I would have been able to fix it at the time, but I definitely felt like there was something not quite right. And they did end up watching it, but not being in a room full of people, hearing them say that, what about my man? I have seen videos of it afterwards, and it was quite funny. But I was in a bar, and I think I was maybe particularly talking to some talent as well at that point. Right. So I wasn't really necessarily too involved in the Fight the Future film showing at Firefest. But watching the video of somebody on social media showing that bit where they all shouted it, that would have been special. That would have been great. But never mind, you can't be everywhere. Okay then, so thank you very much for joining me for those few minutes. I'm loving the fact that I've got most of the Father Joe stuff. I think that it's really good content, and Billy Connolly. I've only done one mimicry. I think I've not done too bad over these last few episodes, so yeah, I managed to get through it okay. But if people were wanting to find you online, what are you up to? Where can people find you? And how can people find you online and discuss things further?
You can find me on the network. I co-host A Dream Given Form, which is a Babylon 5 podcast. I co-host that with Baz Greenland. We go episode by episode through all the episodes of Babylon 5. We're currently on season 2. So if you like the cult sci-fi TV series from the 90s, Babylon 5, come on over and have a little conversation with us. Also, coming back from quite a long hiatus is Observing the Pattern, which is my Fringe podcast. We're going to get that completed hopefully this year because we've got a little bit of season 4 and then the final season. So that's going to come out this year. And then you can find me on Twitter at Luke_Winch and also LukeWinch.com, and also on YouTube at Luke's Book Nook, where I talk about science fiction and fantasy novels, author interviews, and all kinds of good fun stuff. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. We can find me on Linktree, linktr.ee/R Muldrake. That's RMULDRAKE. You can find out what I'm up to there. The biggest thing I'm pushing at the moment is my new Lost podcast. Lost celebrated its 20th anniversary this year in 2024. So starting from September, I will be going through episode by episode, each episode of season 1 on its 20th anniversary. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. Luke, you've already recorded some with me as well, so it's great to have you on the podcast, and those are in the bag. Nice little cohesion with the Fringe podcast, which should have been the other way around, really, but never mind.
Yeah.
But there you go. But also, if people are searching for the Xcast, find us on all the usual channels. You can find us on the X-Files Basement on Facebook. Just type in the Xcast and X-Files podcast. You should be able to find us there. You can find us on the Patreon, patreon.com/the Xcast. And you can find us on Twitter at the X_cast. So those are the main places you can find us all. As I said, and maybe in a previous episode, Tony will be taking the reins for next episode. So that should be fun for him and continue on our journey. I am now going to listen to the minutes that have not been released yet so I can get my head around what's been happening. But until next time, trust no one.